Okay, hi guys. Today we're going to be talking about the organization of life. So this is really the first part of chapter 2. And in this unit we're going to be talking about biochemistry. So to start, we really want to just look at how some things are organized, okay? In biology, we're going to be starting all the way from the atom right here. And we're going to be talking then about molecules and then macromolecules, cells, tissues, organs, and we're even going to be talking about body systems. So for this assignment, you're going to need to fill out the notes as you watch the video and attach them to page 6 of your EN. Okay? So a lot of you are probably wondering, why are we reviewing chemistry? Isn't this biology class? Okay? The reason we need to study these things is because molecules are involved with the metabolism and cell transport, protein production, and more. Okay, so pretty much everything in biology comes back down to chemistry. We also study how the compounds at the molecular level affect our body, how they affect cells, and how they affect other organisms. And so that's things like hormones, okay? How do hormones affect us? How does medication affect us? All those kinds of things. And much of today's biology research has to do with chemistry at some level. So what is everything made up of? Okay, atoms. That is the key information to know. Everything is made up of atoms. Okay, atoms are the smallest unit of matter. So they're the building blocks for everything, okay? And atoms are made up of 3 things: protons, neutrons, and electrons, okay? And from this, we can see the protons are positive. So in this picture, they're the blue ones, okay? The electrons are negative, and so they're the green ones in this picture. And the protons are positive, okay, which are the blue ones. Okay. And I apologize. I think neutrons are red because they're neutral. Protons are blue and they're positive. Electrons are green and they're negative. Okay. And we know that these 2, protons and neutrons, make up the nucleus. Okay. And that the electrons are on the outside of the atom, in like these little electron clouds, okay? So why are atoms neutral, okay? If you're just looking at this carbon atom, there's no charge on the overall thing, okay? That's because in a normal atom, the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons, okay? So overall, the atom is neutral. And we can see that in this example right here, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negative electrons, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, it tells you right here, 6 positive protons. So negatives and positives even each other out, no charge. Okay, and hopefully you remember some of this from that reading study guide paper. Ions are a little bit different, okay? Ions are charged atoms, okay? And it's a charged atom because it has either gained or lost an electron, okay? So that's something we'll talk about a little bit more, but if you gain an electron, it becomes more negative, and if you lose electrons, they become more positive because electrons have a negative charge. Okay, elements. So elements is something that you had to work on in that pink paper yesterday about the amoeba sisters, right? It talked about what are the most important elements in those macromolecule compounds we'll be studying. So elements cannot be broken down into other substances, okay? They're the types of atoms. Elements, you could also say, are, not that pen, types of atoms, okay? And there's over 100 different types of atoms that are known, and they're organized into the periodic table of elements. So hopefully you remember yesterday, you mostly dealt with carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. So a compound. A compound is when two or more elements combine together. Okay, so here we can see there's 2 hydrogen atoms. So that becomes hydrogen gas, which is H2, Carbon dioxide is another example. There's an oxygen and a carbon. So that's 3 atoms that have come together, make carbon dioxide. Okay, so they always form in the exact combination of elements. For example, carbon dioxide is always CO2. Okay, if you have CO3, that's something else. So it always is in the exact combination of elements. It cannot be broken down physically, okay? So you can't just say, hey, I don't want this oxygen on here anymore, I'm going to get rid of it. You have to do a chemical change in order to change these compounds, okay? They can be altered chemically, just like we said. And another example besides carbon dioxide could be water. Okay, so H2O. This is showing you that there are 2 H's, 1 H, 2 H, and since there's no number after the oxygen, there's only 1 oxygen. So H2O has 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. So anytime there is a water molecule, any type of water has 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen to make H2O. So isotopes, there's something you'll talk about a bit more in chemistry, but they're really just the same atom with a different number of neutrons in the nucleus, okay? These are really the atoms that you think of that are radioactive, and they can be used to study the functions of different organs and how old fossils are, like carbon dating, for example. And we will talk more about this topic next semester. But just so you know, the only difference for isotopes is that it is an atom of the same element, but with a different number of neutrons, okay? So if you can, take a minute in your notes to look back, and I'd like you to answer these review questions. Okay, what parts make up an atom? What are their charges and where are they located? Perhaps draw one. Okay, why is an atom considered to be neutral? What is a molecule? What is a bond? Okay. Molecule, actually, I'm going to say, or compound. Oh my goodness, I can't even write anymore. Compound. All right. And we're going to talk about these two in a moment, okay? So take a minute, make sure you draw an atom, say why they're neutral, and explain what a compound is in your own words. So you can pause the video and take as much time as you need. Okay, so chemical reactions. Chemical reactions are processes where atoms or substances are reorganized into different substances. In other words, bonds are breaking and forming. Okay, so chemical equations, whenever we're talking about a chemical reaction, we write a chemical equation. So we can see that it is usually the reactants plus reactants yields the products, okay? I think of this like baking. Here's your ingredients, okay? What are you putting into it? Ingredients. And then your product is same thing, right? Like your cupcake or whatever you're baking, it's your final product. Cupcake, cake, pie, I don't know. I'm going to make myself hungry soon. So the reactant is the starting substance, and the product is what forms during the reaction. So here's an example for cellular respiration. This is glucose, C6H12O6, plus 6 oxygen becomes CO2 plus H2O. And if you look at this, you can see that it's really just the atoms being arranged. Here are the carbon atoms, and they become the carbon atoms over here. These hydrogen atoms just get moved over to these over here. The oxygen right here and right here go to here and here. So you're just rearranging the molecules. Nothing's being created, nothing's being destroyed. We're just rearranging. Okay? Outside of chemical reactions, when we're talking about a large scale, something that is being mixed up, then we call it a mixture. Okay? So a mixture is a macro scale. Okay? For example, there is, what is this stuff called? Trail mix, or a salad or something like that is a combo of substances that keeps its own characteristics, right? Even though you make trail mix, that's still an almond, this is still an M&M, that's still a raisin, etc. Okay? They all keep the same components. And solutions are liquid mixtures. Okay? A solution is a liquid mixture. So we would not say that this cookie, in biology, we would not say this cookie is a solution. It has to be liquid, which also includes gases, technically. Okay? 2 parts of solutions. So whenever you're making a solution, there are 2 parts. There is a solute and a solvent. Okay? The solute is the substance being dissolved, and the solvent is what solute is dissolving in, okay? So for example, if you're making hot chocolate, your solute is the hot chocolate and your water is the solvent. And water is a really good solvent because it's considered the universal one because we use it for tons of things. Okay? So I would like you to, in your notes, take a moment and think about what is the difference between a reactant and a product in a chemical reaction. What happens to molecular bonds in chemical reactions, and what is the difference between a solute and solvent? And give a different example. Give a different example of the one that I gave you in the notes. So go ahead and pause the video, and you can answer those and play again when you're ready to move on. So our last little bit of chemistry review is acids and bases, okay? So an acid is anything that releases hydrogen ions in water, okay? For example, hydrochloric acid releases H positive hydrogen ions in water. A base is anything that will release a hydroxide ion or an OH negative in water, okay? We have the pH scale. It's the concentration of hydrogen ions in a solution. It goes from 0 to 14, with 0 being the most basic, 0 being the most acidic, and 14 being the most basic, okay? So you can see battery acid is very acidic, ammonia and lye are very basic substances, okay? And so just so you know, the pH scale is a measure of the concentration of hydrogen ions in a solution. Seven is neutral, like water or blood, and everything above that is basic. So just a little fun fact, the pH of human blood is 7.4, and a person may not survive if their blood pH drops below 6.9 or above 7.8 in a few hours. So this is why we have homeostasis, which we'll be doing a whole project on later, so you can look forward to that, in order to maintain pH. So take one more moment in your notes and jot these things down, okay? How can we tell that a substance is an acid or a base? On the pH scale, anything between 0 and 6.9 is a blank, and anything from 7.1 to 14 is a blank. What does pH actually measure? What ions do acids release? And what ions do bases release? So you can pause the video to answer those and then play it again when you're ready. Okay, inorganic versus organic substances. So inorganic substances, there goes the bell. Okay, now that the bell's done ringing, inorganic versus organic substances. Inorganic substances, they dissolve or react in water to release ions, okay, or electrolytes. That's really the only important thing you need to know. This is just for your own information. Some examples of inorganic substances include water, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and salt. Usually inorganic substances are pretty small molecules. Water is a little bit extra special. So it is formed by covalent bonds. And what is a covalent bond? Covalent bond is when two atoms share electrons. Okay? So H2O is two H's and one O, like we talked about earlier. And polar molecules are molecules where the electrons hang out in one area more than the other. So for example, if you look at this water molecule, this oxygen side tends to hog the electrons, so it's slightly more negative, and the hydrogens don't mind giving them up, so they're a little bit more positive. So how is water special? Okay, the number one thing that makes water special is hydrogen bonding. This is essentially why it's liquid on Earth, okay? It's interaction between the hydrogen atoms with other atoms, in this case, the oxygen atoms in the water. Okay, it has a couple of unique properties like cohesion, which is sticking to itself, and adhesion, which is sticking to other surfaces. So cohesion is what is responsible for water droplets on your car or anything like that. And adhesion is like what plants use to make it go up. Capillary action is actually pulling the water through tubes, and surface tension can support light objects. So here's some examples of cohesion and adhesion. Okay, and here's an example of capillary action and surface tension. So inorganic versus organic substances. Now, organic substances are what we're going to be focusing on for this unit, okay? They're also known as macromolecules. In other words, they are giant compounds, okay? And most importantly, you should know is that they are all carbon-based. That is what makes something organic, okay? If it's a carbon-based molecule. It does not release ions when dissolved in water, and there are 4 main organic compounds in this class. And we talked about these, or you guys kind of watched a video about them yesterday in the Amoeba Sisters, which was carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids, and proteins. Okay, so for tonight, your homework is to, on page 7 of your EN, divide your paper into 3 sections, so like a top and a middle and a bottom. And in the top section, you're going to answer questions on page 39, numbers 1 through 5. The middle section will be questions on page 43, 1 through 4. And in the last section, I'd like you to draw a picture summarizing what you learned about atoms, molecules, bonds, and chemical reactions. Write a sentence describing what you drew so that you can have more than one picture in this section if that helps you. And I definitely want to make sure that you show a covalent and ionic bond. And I will see you tomorrow.